I tried, but didn't get an answer. I didn't leave a message. So I got tomorrow. How are you?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order. It's 4 o'clock. Let's all stand. Pledge allegiance to the American flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag. To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under liberty, justice for all. First of all, I'd like to establish a quorum, and I don't know if Kathy is on yet. Scott,
Yeah.
I'm on.
we do have a quorum. Item number 4, approved minutes of the July 21st, July 26th regular session, and 26th executive session. Do we have any corrections to the minutes? I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes as written. Corky, a second. Nancy, any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next financial update, Jim Fox. Figure out what I did with my notes. Scott, have you got the PowerPoint?
Yes, I do. Hang on one sec. We're starting in June.
was there a minute. There we go.
Sorry about that.
All right. So, first page. All right. So if you remember that we do the North Star transition here, we were going through 2 months of this since it was kind of hard to pull the data in the last couple of months on that. I guess there's some pretty large red numbers up there. And I'm not going to go through each one of those, but from an expense standpoint, this is what we talked about, I guess, 3 meetings ago, is there are a number of expenditures which we have funded through our surplus cash for the last few years on that. So that's what's happening again here, is that you're seeing an expense, but the budget hasn't been adjusted to reflect that. So the reality is, for example, you look at year-to-date actual budget on the expense, there's $341,000 we're showing that we're over budget. But within that, we have the expense of the real estate purchase, the log cabin, which was $210,000. We've got North Star, which was $109,000, I believe it was. So right there, you can see we're already kind of to good when you start plugging that, we're plug that into the budget. So again, don't be alarmed by this. Again, Crystal and I have been through this, and we're really tracking pretty well with these numbers on that. So there's other expenditures like that too throughout. So next slide. So just in June, on the major revenue contributors, you can see the food and beverage sales, we did well, $18,000 better in the budget. In fact, I mean, we're tracking really pretty well there. In your packet, and then Brian provided that, you can see some of the percentages of where we should normally be relative to this time of year, since we're 6 months in now, and we're ahead of budget on a lot of those. So, newsletter ads, again, thanks to everybody working on that. We're ahead. Miscellaneous income, we've got some campground fees and some citations and restitution. So we're up there. Building permits are tracking a little down. Not quite certain whether that's just due to, it seems to me like there's a lot of construction going on right now. It's probably more a matter of how it was budgeted and just trying to project 18 months into the future where those are going to be. So next slide. Okay, on security and public works, we're ahead of budget there, mostly due to the vacancies and salary and benefits issues that we've had with, I think everybody's aware of that. Golf course professional, the starter salaries and marshals, again, that's probably the most significant issue. You'll see that in July too. And again, we have anticipated that, and we just haven't actually made that adjustment yet. And that's a topic we'll have to get into in the coming meeting. Yeah. Golf maintenance, salaries and benefits, again, a little bit there. Mainly the reason that one's showing $8,000 over is the chemicals and fertilizer. Back the same issue, we have funded a lot of that additional chemical expense, but it's not being reflected in the budget side. Lodge management and food service, we're over $27,000 there. Salaries and benefits, we're paying a little bit more within our salary scale, trying to attract people. As everybody knows, we're trying to staff, and so we are paying a little bit more there. And then also there's a timing issue with the changes in the food and the liquor inventory. So we have an expense that we haven't sold that liquor yet. And then there was a travel, I believe that Penny made a trip there too. So. In administration, again, here's that big number, 269,000 almost, but a big portion of that is North Star. We do have some federal income tax payments. I guess it's a good problem. We've been over on, we we've got a lot of green fees that we're having to pay some taxes on. So, and then the main thing in there too is the purchase of the log cabin. Again, $210,000 of that dollar that there is. That expense will ultimately wind up in CARF. So, next slide. Balances in our CARF and the lake management are all going up, and not a lot of expenses there at the moment. We are on the delinquent accounts. We're got in the packet here kind of the trend on that. We're tracking pretty much normal. There are some issues with late the notices and late fees on some of that. So. And then Indian Creek, we have 200 total members that we're collecting fees for, and then turn that money over to the fire department. Excellent. So here's the $346,000 in our checking account, which is part of what the investment committee is trying to look at and figure out a way that we can kind of keep make some money on that instead of just having that in a checking account. Reserve funds, we're in good shape, a little over $3 million on that. That also includes our contingency, which I believe is $149,000 thereabouts on contingency. So the total balance on all accounts is $3,389,000 right now. That was the June report. Go ahead and go to July. Any questions on June?
Like the property purchase, why is that show the car already have very property down here? That show.
Oh, Crystal, you want to?
Because in my book, in my mind, I don't think that we should move it to CARF just yet, because technically it hasn't been passed by membership to be used as a POA facility. Once fingers crossed, everything passes, then I will be happy to do a journal entry and move the money out of CARF to cover that expense.
All right, Scott, next slide. Okay, so this is July, and again, you can see kind of on the year-to-date side, same issues that I described in June. They are going up. We do have another month's worth of expenses in there. So net revenue, again, we're doing well on the revenue side there. As you can see, year-to-date, and actual budget was $32,000 better on revenue for the month of July. So tracking well there. Next slide. So miscellaneous income, these are the revenue contributors. We've got a dividend check and some resale certificates that are doing better. Food and beverage sales again for July was up, almost $12,000. Newsletter ads again, $4,000 better than what we anticipated. Green fees, there's $4,000 there from our guests. Building permits, again, just fewer permits issued than what we anticipated in the budget. And late fees, here's the late fee issues. So a lot of these late fees were issued in July due to the North Star implementation, and effectively we're not collecting that. Next slide. All right, on the major expense contributors, the golf professional, again, that particular account department on that, the main issue there is the marshal and the starter salaries. That continues to escalate. Golf maintenance, again, the big chunk there is the chemicals and fertilizers. And as I explained before, we've already kind of funded that. So lodge management, food service, the same issues as the last time. And we did also have in July, we had a very, Brian, I think it was about $5,000 worth of expense on an air conditioning unit too, which shows up in that department. In administration, just for the month of July, then we've got some, we're up a little on salaries and legal fees, and again, North Star implementation shows up in there, property purchase, and we were a little bit over on some of our 4th of July expenses too. Again, ARF balance 1.9 million, CARF balance 700,000, Lake Management Reserve Fund 236,000. Again, they just continue to accrue. And Crystal, we've got 160 showing for 30 days here on that, right? So, kind of timing issue mainly on that.
The timing issue really because due to the North Star implementation, we were not able to issue or print statements until the 3rd week of July. And so people are just now beginning to make those payments that were for the June charges and your July fees.
And so I guess we lost the number. We're at 199 on the volunteer fire department here, so they dropped out. I think, okay. And here you can see on our checking account, we're under 400,000 on the last of June. We just haven't been able to roll some of that cash over into the CEDAR that at this time. So that'll be accomplished, and we'll bring that balance down a little bit. So again, reserve fund, including the contingency, 3.1 million, and the total balance of all accounts, 3.6 million. Questions here?
I have one concerning the statements that go out to the individuals. I know I had a hard time reading mine. I didn't know what to put in my checkbook since it's an automatic withdrawal. So I had to wait to see what was actually posted before I could put it in my checkbook. And it didn't seem to add up to what I got on the bill.
The way the North Star system is working at this time is you will get 3 charges if you have an ACH deduction. You will see probably a $17 charge, which covers your garbage. And okay. So if you're also donating $10 to the Indian Creek, then it would be $27. Then you get your $285.25 for your property charges. And then if you've gone to the lodge or the pro shop, then that's a totally different charge that is considered your member charges. So you get 3. Right now, the way the system is working, they're trying to get a fix in it where we possibly can only do 2 ACHs, your member charges and your property charges. But right now, that system still has a little bug in it, and they're not wanting to upgrade us to the latest version of North Star until they get that fixed. So whenever you get your statement, it should be broken down into 2 sections, your member charges and then your property charges.
Okay, I just guess I don't know where to look. I look at the last page and see the bill, and then
And on yours, if I start to say, it should say at the very top, do not pay because you're on ACH. But yeah, you're also, if you're looking at the 2 columns, the first column won't balance to the second column. They're aware of that little bug.
yeah,
And I've been told that our next statement run, that those 2 columns should balance. But what was happening is that in the first column, it was not picking up your taxes that were incurred whenever you make a purchase at the lodge or the pro shop. But the second column is the amount that should balance your grand total.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I might make the comment too. I was walking out of the POA office, so another member was walking in, and I think he had some confusion with that too. So I'm guessing Jamie and Crystal or somebody worked that out with him on the thing. So you're probably not the only one quirky in there. So I just asked that number. I said, please be patient because we do have some, bugs that we're trying to work on at some of those things. It's getting better.
Tim, you mentioned, how we're showing over budgets, but we're kind of really not. So it becomes really a question. First of all, we have made budget adjustments this year to account for those things. Will our North Star system be able to show those budget adjustments, and we have to wait till the next budget to start that, or is that going to soon start?
I just learned how to replicate my budget, and I can go in and make those adjustments that we implemented back in March. So, God willing, at our next board meeting, you'll see a budget that reflects those new budget items.
Sounds good, thanks.
Yeah, that's what I was used to in the budget process. You always had the approved budget, which always stayed the same, so you knew what was approved, but then there was a current budget, which included many times carry forwards from previous year or budget adjustments. And then, so you could track that against what you were actually spending that year. So it sounds like North Star has that capability to be able to do that.
I do have one more question on the back of this report, or towards the back of this report, when you get into like the asset replacement fund, and specifically that one has more detail of specific items under each category of the asset replacement fund. Are those the items that you pulled out of that spreadsheet that we track, and we just actually, so in this case, we have a number of those items for this budget year that we have not done.
Yes, that is correct. What I've done is gone through the ARC schedule and pulled out everything that was earmarked to be replaced this year with the amount that was on that schedule, and that's what is the budget. And yes, there's a lot of items that we haven't replaced.
So and maybe a whole separate topic for another time, but given what we have going on with the dock, we probably ought to look at, do these things really need to be replaced, and can we?
And that happens,
Schedule.
and just being here the 1 year, I have noticed that we never replace everything that's earmarked to be replaced for that year. So that money just kind of flows to the next year.
Right.
And to that point, Jim, tomorrow Ways and Means is convened. I asked them a month ago to say, let's get together. I need some direction for it. I highlighted specifically that particular issue, and I need to find out how am I going to be able to fund said docs and a few other scenarios before I start pulling triggers with that. So that's spot on. While I have on microphone, just a point of clarification. In July, there was a mention about a dividend that came through from Texas Mutual. That has nothing to do with any sort of investment or anything like that. It probably would be better described as a workman's comp refund for the prior year. Some years we get very little back, some years we have a robust one. This particular year we had a $13,000 refund on our workman's comp. So in fact, you could describe it as a dividend, but I didn't want to have anyone in the audience think that we have some sort of investment account where we're getting dividends and plowing it back into O&M, which we wouldn't do. This is strictly having to do with workman's comp. And it's not insignificant at $13,000 change.
Okay. Someone else have a question?
One question. While we're talking about numbers, we'll start talking about the budget from Brian, I guess, in October. But will we have any input from the board, like starting next month? Or we'll have an opportunity to.
Well, let me answer part of that. The HR committee is convening in 2 weeks because one of the biggest line items that we have on there is healthcare costs. And going to go through more than just an exercise, but an update of where we stand with healthcare, what their recommendation will be to the board in terms of a philosophical approach for it. Where at one time the philosophy was X, now that needs to be modified. And it's rather significant. It's about $300,000 expense to the POA, and they're already getting some pressures on that going up 15 to 16%. And we're going to have to realign and make some adjustments to that. So that's one of them. Number two is the sanitation or waste removal. That's the fourth largest contract that we have. That's renewed in March of 22. And we will have an indication of where that sits probably in October in terms of can we avoid this automatic COLA that we currently are contracted under in the renegotiation, either with their existing vendor, or if we in fact go out for bid and change vendors. And that's a whole nother situation. But then the third part are salary and wages. Salary and wages being the largest one. And the team will have the breakdown per department on the expectations. And let's go ahead and use golf as one of them, because it seems to be the most steady, even though he does have some transition, but for the most part steady. If he comes back and says Brian Brown that he needs $485,000 to run full crew, and this year it was 465. So then I would say, okay, we're looking at about 2.5–3% there. The lodge, on the other hand, is quite dicey. And I don't have my head or arms around that yet. That's going to take additional time for a group of us to get around that. Admin expenses from salary and wages will remain relatively flat. Public works, there's probably going to be some expansion there. Golf will be relatively flat because we've got the one big contract there. But the salary and wages, Corky, is really probably going to be the driver on in terms of percent of increase and what we're going to have to realize to operate in this new atmosphere.
I might add too, Kirby, I think the next agenda items can talk a little bit about the budget timeline and that. I know Brian and Crystal and I talked too about backing up from all of the approval dates and those sorts of things so that we can kind of, in the next month or so now, really figure out what it is we need to work on.
Anyone else have any more questions on the treasury report? Let me just mention, we have quite a few people out in the audience. We're glad to have you all here tonight to participate in the board meeting. Also, if you notice, we've kind of changed things up here a little bit. We got a camera in the back, and from what we heard from the town halls that we had, everybody that were looking at us online, you can hear and understand a whole lot better by the way that we got to set up here tonight. So that's one of the things we're trying to make it where people can actually hear and understand when they watch the board meetings. And I'll remind the board members, be sure you use your mic if you have something to say, so that not only one's in here, but outside can also hear it. So let's go to item number 6, Controller 2021 budget timeline. Crystal, help.
So under financial update, I did not, it listed me talking a little bit about the review and take action on the 2020 audit review. That was for the 6-month budget. We just got it today. So there's really not a lot to update. We'll compare it with what the draft was. There weren't that many significant changes in it. In general, it was what we expected when we looked at the draft. So we'll get into that here pretty quick. So next meeting, we'll have a better update on that.
Next item, number 7, COVID-19 update, Kathy Bray. And,
Yes, can you hear me, Sam?
okay, I thought, that's what you were, okay, go ahead.
No, he was talking about the audit, I guess, about
Oh.
the budget. So just got done closing the month of July, so, it is, like Ryan said, we're gonna meet with our insurance broker in a couple of weeks to discuss, our healthcare, and I will be pulling information from our APS system to talk about, to see about our salaries. But it is our intention this year to have, all of our department heads heavily involved in the budget. They will be 100% responsible for their department's budget. There won't be any coming to me and asking me how I came up with the numbers. We will be able to go back to the department head and they will be able to say, I came up with this number this way. To Corky's point, this will be the first time that I've done a budget for Lake Kiowa. So I'm assuming that I will have to have a budget for y'all, the board, in October for y'all to review, and then y'all will vote on it in November. Is that correct? Hang on. So that tells me that I have about a month and a half to calculate a budget to get it to y'all at your October budget for meeting. Adams is shaking his head no.
We were told before, so.
Okay. Then I will bust butt and calculate budget month. And so just know that there will probably be a second revision to it, you know, with adjustments and possibly a third. And so, all right.
With knowing that, I might suggest too that all board, and I guess members for that matter too, but board, if you have any input or thoughts about things that you want to see in the budget, by all means be thinking about that, and I guess you could email me or Crystal on any of the emphasis that you'd like to see in the budget. And we need that input early, so.
Anything more?
Yes, and I'd like to mention, I'm not so sure how we're doing the budget now. In the past, you know, the board had an opportunity to say which areas we needed to beef up or so forth, and that was usually the September meeting, and then you have to have the budget ready 2 months or 60 days in advance, which is November, which would be the October meeting. And I didn't know if what Jim has just said, if you have something you want in the budget to submit it. Normally we have that at the September board meeting, so I don't know how we're going about it this year. I'm not sure how you did it last year.
Yeah, like last year, we had a workshop prior to that, and the budget was brought in for the board to review and make recommendations or suggestions. I believe that's what we did last year. Yeah, we had multiple workshops. So if we need it, we can do that. Okay, next, now we'll get to COVID-19 update. Kathy Gray is, can y'all see Kathy up there? Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, I've been sending out the updates every Sunday. So you can see the count with Cook County and the other areas close in proximity to us. Of course, the numbers do continue to rise. I did speak with Tom Sledge. He's with the hospital in Gainesville, and they are now beginning to be stretched very thin. The state is going to bring in 8 nurses, and I think from out of state, to augment his team. And right now, the COVID inpatients are creating a larger surge than we saw earlier this year. And his number one request is tell everybody to get vaccinated. The unvaccinated are filling up the hospitals. And he couldn't tell me whether it's the Delta variant or which ones they're dealing with. I assume it's all of them, but the hospital beds are filling up. And in our 19 county trauma service area, which of course includes, part of the Metroplex, the COVID patients, if they're needing a higher level of care, they're having to drive them 5 hours further to get a higher level of service for them. So he's just really, really concerned. He's also asking all residents in Cook County not to use the hospital emergency rooms for COVID testing. They're getting a lot of people trying to get out for vacation or come back in. And you really need to go to the testing facilities rather than tying up emergency departments. Ray says we won't be able to get a breakdown of the Cook County numbers. The state's not doing that for any county. They've kind of backed off all of that. And unless Ray Fletcher's team takes over again, we won't see a breakdown for Kiowa. So what you're seeing is Cook County's numbers in total. That said, I don't know if we want to talk about any kind of mask reminders or what we're comfortable with. I know we've got the big holiday coming up, long weekend, a great concert coming, just lots of activities. So is there especially for our employees, we need to certainly talk about that. Are we going to try to encourage more mask wearing, or?
Any y'all have any comments? Any direction we should go, or just continue going as per Governor Abbott as far as the mass? I don't know what you would think about the lodge employees.
The Texas Restaurant Association's been put in a very difficult spot by not getting an endorsement on the request for staff to show that they're vaccinated. Several states in the country are requiring, and many companies require that their staff be vaccinated. I think we're inching awfully close to that from that perspective. We really have one major department, and that's being the lodge interfacing. I don't see that we don't ask the same of the other departments, however, be it golf, operations, public works, etc. Administrative staff has quite a bit of interface with the membership as well. By requiring staff to be vaccinated, at this point, the key department heads do not see that as a hindrance to recruitment. So my concern was when we started talking about that, oh, we're already having a hard time, now we're going to make it harder. And the three of them that are involved with it said no, because a majority of them either are or in the process of doing that. The fact that it's free is, advantageous. So.
Anyone have any comments? Mike? Mike? Okay, Candy, thank you very much for the update. What does Cook County have at this time? The latest?
111 as of today. It was at 120 as of Sunday when we published the report. So we dropped.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Kathy? Thank you very much, Kathy.
Thank you.
Next, item number 8, review and take action on rezoning vote monitoring, and I'll turn that to Jim Adams.
Okay, thank you. At last meeting, we instituted some rules related to the ongoing election for the rezoning of the frontage lots. And since that time, there was a committee meeting which I wasn't present at, and that committee asked that Brian seek legal counsel advice on if we could receive vote tally information weekly or periodically, so that committee could understand what level of work needed to be done to get out the vote, and when and if it mattered to be working anymore, if it had already got enough votes to pass, that kind of thing. So Brian did have myself and James on the phone, and I think I can let James summarize it, but what I got out of it was that that we, like last time, we made some rules that stay within the bylaws and the covenants, and that we could make that rule, and he did not see any legal or law that would prevent us from that, but I'll let James cover that.
That's correct, and this kind of boils down to skipping all of how we get here, but I'm primarily basing that on the property code statute 209, which basically says the property owners association may adopt rules to allow voting by secret ballot by association members. And so we had some rules that we discussed that made it into the minutes, and this would be clarifying that. And the way that I understand putting all of these pieces together between bylaws, covenants, and statutes, we created a secret ballot, so we couldn't know who voted how, but it would be within the parameters of this to have a rule that says you can know how many people have voted, maybe who hasn't voted, and then a total for and against. So you're not breaking to know how to manage your resources as far as making sure you get a full and fair election finish.
So with that, I would like maybe to put forward a motion that would say that we can receive weekly updates on the how many have voted out at for and against, and who hasn't voted, so we can the reminders, although we do know that already, we said we would do that. So it's basically receiving a total for and against, so that the committee can know what kind of activities they can do to help get out the vote.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? John?
Well, I don't have any problem for someone knowing how many votes have been cast. We already know how many, who has, we even know who hasn't voted by virtue of our system. What I am opposed to though is knowing what the tally is for and against. I understand that it'd be nice to know who's for and who's against, so we can monitor how we're going to try to get out the vote. But I am in favor of getting out the vote flat out from the day it began to the day it ends, and then determine whether we won or lost. I think it's a serious mistake to monitor the tally in the 4 votes. And I think we're doing all right and get right down to the end and find out we're not doing all right. We should have campaigned much harder for the whole time. So as relates to the motion that Jim has made, I just go on the record that I'm opposed to knowing who voted for or against, for that matter. Maybe only the tally, the number for, the number against. Other than that, I have no other complaint about the motion. I can say that.
Anyone else have anything? Discussion? Dorothy?
I'm not sure I've got the concept down. Jim, are you asking that we have a list of like 400 yeses, 100 nos? Or are you asking for what lots have not voted versus what lots have voted or both?
We already are already receiving what lots have not voted, and we're sending them reminders. We already did that last meeting. So I was just, the motion is to get not a list, but the total of for and the total against.
And you said you're already getting that.
Getting the total for and the total against.
John?
I would like to offer amendment to the motion that the tally of for and against be excluded from our knowledge. If Jim will accept that then I'll withdraw.
John, that basically is the motion. We already, everything else is the motion. It's already in place, so that is the motion. So you're nullifying the motion, basically.
That's my point. And I,
Or we can vote on this.
well, wait a minute, make sure I understand what your motion is. You want to know how many were cast. We know that already, right? Or at least we know who hasn't voted. That's the one thing we know. We don't know who hasn't voted. But you also want to know how many have been cast, which I guess you did the arithmetic to figure that out. And you also want to know how many votes are for and against. And so that's really what your motion is for us to know who's for and who's against, not who, how many the tally is that correct? Then I withdraw my amendment and I'll vote no against the motion.
Anyone else have any discussion on it? I know I'd like to, I don't necessarily want to know for, how many are for it, and how many are against. I would like to know how many have voted. And we already know how many have not. I say we know that. I don't know who's getting the information other than the vote manager. I have not gotten anything, and I don't know of anyone else as to it has not been given out any information, so I would not have a problem with finding out where we are as far as how many voted, how many have not. But as far as knowing how many voted for, how many have voted against, I don't think we should try to obtain that figure. That's my opinion.
But I would, and I asked why.
I just don't think,
I feel like that this is one of the bigger things that we've had going on since the Lake Management Fund. We went out and did everything in the world with the Lake Management Fund, put the signs up at the front gate, got buttons and got out and campaign like crazy. This right here.
the POA didn't do that.
Well, you say whatever, but it was still on the front sign and we still had buttons and we pushed to get it done. And everybody on this board raised their hand and said we were for it 100%. I think we'd have the same thing right here. If I asked you around the clock, who's for getting this rezoning, everybody would say yes. And I don't think we're doing everything we can do to get it passed. I think we're going back and forth and not gonna get it passed. I think you should be doing everything you should be trying to push and get it passed. That's just my opinion.
Let me just ask a question in response to you. If we know who's for and who's against. Okay. No, I'm saying that, I think that's what the motion was. No?
Right, the motion is to know the total for and the total against, so that you know how much effort we have and if we can quit working. Because once we get so many for or so many against, you know, well, it's over, might as well quit working on it. And we'll have wasting our committee members' time, our board members' time, our citizens who are out there working for it. It's time.
I just wanted to add too that, I mean, the committee felt very strongly about this. They definitely, if they're gonna put work in, many of them are poised to do so. Some of them have asked other people to help with this. And I don't think we're gonna get as much response from those committee members to go out and campaign if we don't have some indication of where we stand on this. So I think it's, need to be thinking about the committee's recommendation on this too.
Dorothy?
I thought Kathy mentioned last week that Sam would be getting a weekly or bi-weekly update, and you could share it if you wanted to. Is Kathy still there?
Yes, I'm here.
I guess not, but I thought that's what she had said last week. But this is my third covenant vote that I've been involved with, and the other two, we did get that report of how many people were for and how many people were against, and we got it every couple weeks. So it's not unusual that I've been involved since 2009. So it's been done, to my knowledge, ever since.
Okay, any more discussion?
I have one.
John? Or Nancy, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I just want to clarify for me, you said we will get, so is that a universal we, or is that the board we, or the committee we, or who will get the numbers? I guess is what I'm asking.
Coming to yeah, it could be for anybody. It's public information as far as I'm concerned.
John?
I just want to make one last point, and a point that I made in a previous board meeting. We as a board and we as a POA have a vested interest in the outcome of this election, and we get to count the votes. Now, that doesn't sit right with me very well, and I think that's one of the reasons why we should not keep a tally of who is for and who is against. It just looks bad. And like I say, we're a party in interest, and we're counting the votes.
But maybe I'm still confused. I don't think that's what the motion was, to tell us who's for and who's against. It was simply to tell us, for right now, the vote is 400 for and 100 against. That's all it said. it doesn't give us lot numbers of those that voted or didn't vote.
Okay, John, I understand that you withdrew your amendment to this. Is this a motion? Is that correct? You say you just
Understand the motion is only as to the tally of for and against. And that's the only part of the motion. And my amendment would be not to do that. But that's the only part of the motion, so my only solution looks like is to vote yea or nay on the motion.
So you withdrew your amendment?
Yes, sir, I did. I'm sorry.
All right, so we have a motion, Jim motion you want to state it one more time?
Make a motion that we on a regular basis receive, both totals for the for and against on the rezoning vote.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second, we've had discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? One, okay. Motion carries. Committee updates. Review and take possible action on proposed committee member changes. Jim go ahead, Jim, with your request.
Sure, on the Lodge and Tavern, we have had a couple of people resign for various reasons, and that was Maria Solomon and James Sweet. We were trying to lower the number of people on that committee, but we got those two additional resignations. We did need to add a person. I have proposed that we add Susan Hare, who and she has connections to the full committee, and it's a good crossover. And she's on the social committee too, so it's a good crossover there.
Okay, to follow up on that, the next item, updated committee member list. I went through I went through the committee list because in the communique, there were arrows as far as who was on it. Some people had been taken off. There were new members and it was not up to date. I went to each committee chair and got the response back as to actually what is effective at this date today. And that's where that list that's in your packet came from as to the current members and chairs of each committee that we have. And I would propose that we add to the list, as Jim had requested, Susan Hare would be added to that committee list that you have in front of you. So it would be amended to have her name on there. Other than that, all the names, chairs are correct as of today. Now, having said that, I would like to make a motion that we accept the document before you that has all the committee chair and members as of this date for publication to be put into the communique and other sources. So, do I have a second on accepting that, Jerry? Any discussion? Nancy?
I need to add 2 people to the celebration committee. Tom Blackwell decided that he wanted to continue to serve out his term. So he wanted to continue. And that was just the other day. And then Deborah Howland, she is our friend of the house. For us, she will be also an ex officio member on the celebration committee. And there is just an administrative change on the back. It's Don Knox that serves on the long range planning, not Don No, although he knows a lot.
Oh.
It is Don Knox.
Okay.
Thank you.
Me, I made a mistake there. Okay, John?
Well, I may add one to the Safety and Security Committee, be Melanie Kirkland.
Or the name?
Melanie Kirkland.
Anyone else have any additions or removals? We would like the changes as given to us here on the committee chair and members. Yes, Jim.
Sorry, I just noticed, land use committee, I believe we had added, Steve Davis to the previous meeting.
Who?
Steve Davis. So under land use, that should also reflect, he's not listed there. I apologize for missing that when you contacted me.
Okay, we'll have that. Any more? I thought I had it all down. Apparently not. Okay. So we have an updated list, and this will be the correct one that we're going to be communicate for this. Do I have a motion, have a second? Everyone in favor of accepting this document? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Bylaws and Covenants Committee, Corky.
Oh, we've been following the legislative laws for the last couple of months. If you recall, there were 59 state bills. Our CAI didn't do us a good job of letting us know which ones passed. So we've been kind of waiting in the wings, but now we're getting some information from other community associations with their lawyers and what has passed. The main one that we're talking about is Senate Bill 1588. And it looks like they've taken about 20 bills of those 59, put them together into one bill that looks like goes into effect, majority of it on September the 1st. So we have a lot of work to do. Just kind of give you a small rundown. Religious displays we talked about maybe 6-7 years ago when someone posted the 10 Commandments on a rock in their front yard. And we changed the rules for religious displays that it had to be 15 feet within your house, from your house, not out by on your property line. The new law allows religious displays to be placed on your property. There are several other measures in this bill about various documents that some have been codified, like our FOIA request, foreclosure policy, different types of policy that will all have to be updated within the next couple of weeks and codified with the county. There's some that doesn't apply, but most of them do. They go from constitutional carry to having something I never heard of. And you remember the name, Crystal, whatever they call that. Or what? Yeah, the management certificate that I knew nothing about. Crystal said we don't do it, but evidently we'll have to do it. But from leasing policies to, it will affect the rules, the architecture control committee, the covenants, the bylaws, the FOIA requests, the delinquency payment. A lot of different documents will have to be updated. So we have a lot of work to do. And so we're going to start.
Okay, thank you, Cook. Because the next one is discuss and take action on establishing an ad hoc committee for 2020 Texas law change implementation. I am proposing to the board that we establish an ad hoc committee. We can call it Senate Bill 1588 implications and applications, or I will let maybe Corky come up. I've asked Corky to be the chair of this committee. And since we have rules, we have bylaws, we have ACC, it's a lot involved with the law to have one committee that can go through their full members from the various committees that are affected and get the changes made pretty quick. Doing it that way. I'll make a motion on it, but do I have any kind of discussion? I'd like to get feedback from the board to have one committee that will be kind of pull all this together to make sure that it all gets done complete and correct. So, anyone?
Yes, yeah. I think that as other committees, standing committees or interim committees, have a staff liaison is critical for the implementation of this. And I'd recommend that you have, use Jamie, as she's already jumped out of the chair to volunteer for this, as the one to be the staff liaison for this, as she is so closely aligned with so many parts of this. And then the other little part, just for the open session that we're having tonight, the other part is the notification of board of directors meetings changed from 72 hours to 6 days. That is not insignificant. That needs to kind of get rhythm through the community as we get these things posted out there. So Janie's very involved in helping me with the agendas and the board meeting and then making sure by 3 o'clock on Friday it's posted. Now, let's add a couple more days to that, and that means the pressure on the rest of the board members to get the documentation and what we need to do for a meeting. Now, that doesn't mean we can't have more meetings, but they're just a matter of organization. So I lay that out, Sam, and that's important.
Jeff?
Question that we might direct to James, but I think it's fair to having worked around laws like this part. I think it's fair to say by September 1st, on September 1st, we need to be following the law, but our documents don't have to necessarily be updated by then. And if we're making progress towards that, we're okay. Is that a fair statement?
I think it is. A lot of the changes, as I see it, were designed for people not like this association, which has very structured rules and procedures meets regularly. It seemed like a lot of this was targeting people that meet once a year, and nobody knows when that once a year meeting is. So other than some procedures that we can follow currently with your architectural review committee and also your enforcement actions, those are the two biggest substantive changes, and we can implement changes in those procedures internally, and so we can make those committees meet the statute right now if we needed to. So I agree, there are some things that we need to start getting online and things like that, but I would like to get them done as quick as we can, obviously, but I think that most of this is stuff that with the rules that we have, and maybe that's a little bit written into our other stuff that says we will comply with the law. So I think that we're in good shape to allow
Anyone else? Any comments? I'll make a motion to establish an ad hoc committee for the 2021 Texas law change implementation with Corky being the chair of the committee. And he will in turn develop the committee with the members that are needed. Do I have a second? Joanna? Any more discussion or discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Since we're talking about committees, I'd like to suggest that our committee include Jamie and John Roach.
It'll be up to you. I have no problem with it. I don't know if any other members not from board members. The next architectural control committee chair appointment. Jim Adams.
All right, one of the items in House Bill, Senate Bill 1588, yeah, I said it wrong. But it's that no board member spouse, or no one living in a board member's house may reside or be on the architectural control committee. So that goes into effect September 1st. So I need to resign from that effective at the end of the month, and we need a new chairman. So we had our last official meeting this morning, and we talked about it, and I talked to Sam about it, and he said I can make a recommendation to you guys, and I recommend that John Halliburton, who's on the committee, take over the chairmanship. John's agreed to accept that, and I'll continue to work with the committee till the end of the month on these rule changes. We're going to meet next Monday on rule changes, so I'll just continue to help them, but John will be in charge after the first of the month. If you guys so approve. Yes, he is. does have a real estate license. So I'll just put that in the form of, I'll put it in the form of motion that John Halliburton, the chairman of the Architectural Control Committee, starting September 1st.
We have a second. John, second. Any discussion? And we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 10, community manager, Brian Matt.
Thank you, appreciate it. Item A has actually been reviewed, and we do have documentation on the approval of that $9,000 or nearly $10,000 having to do with the sunscreen in the pavilion. So that's really a non-issue at this point. But I do want to talk a little bit more about the pavilion. Recently, we had a process for the flooring of the pavilion to help eradicate issues of concern for safety. This wasn't a matter of cosmetics, a matter of safety for the flooring of the pavilion. There was approximately 310 linear feet that were addressed under the pavilion ceiling onto the floor. There was a rhino carbon fiber that was used. This was the firm that used to do the lay of it back when it was completed. Randy Howell was monitoring this closely as he's watching this. There's also an epoxy that is currently on steel that gives a glossy finish to it and should clear then flat. So if you're out there looking now, you'll see, oh, why is it all shiny? But then it renovates and goes into a flat scenario. At this point, this is another step in the process of finishing up the pavilion. It is, of my opinion, and I'm an absolute layman here, that there's probably going to be another evaluation of what is needed for our flooring for the pavilion. The fact that it has virtually no degree of slope to it creates the fact that even a modest rain, such as the one we had on Saturday, puddles and pools and gathers and creates, an area in which any sort of dirt comes on it. And when we cleaned it this particular day, became a complete, ordeal to do that. And it really makes it onerous to try to keep this pristine, beautiful amenity that we have up to date. So we kind of shoot ourselves in the foot in terms of being able to manage that. So Randy and a number of people that have been closely aligned with it will continue to review this and make some recommendations. So in essence, I'm telling my board, there's probably another chapter to be written on this, but in terms of the safety, we address the safety aspect of it first. Then there's some cosmetic things, and then there's some grading elements that will be addressed, and we'll get the support documents for that. Hopefully here the fourth quarter of 21. The other aspect of what I call the greater lodge campus is having to do with our docks, which at the last meeting, I asked for permission to go ahead and close them, and they're closed. Tomorrow at the Ways and Means Committee meeting, we will be going through the various reserve accounts that the POA has and looking at ways of what can we legally do to fund this dock program. Is it possibly something that we have to phase in, or we do arbitrarily $50,000 worth of the work here in 21 and then finish it up in 22, or we open up 3 really good docks already in pristine and do it now? Or is the mobilization cost between doing it in 2 or 3 phases going to hurt us? So that evaluation needs to be done. But before I get into the evaluation of it and spending the time with subcontractors on it, I need to have Ways and Means help give me the direction on where the funding is going to come from. So once we get through tomorrow, and I don't know if I'm going to have an answer tomorrow after Ways and Means meeting, but I think we'll have some directional understanding of how this is going to happen. And then we also have 3 pieces of equipment that are far exceed the 10% variant on what a replacement should be, and they're golf course equipment items. Blade, what was that? Blade grinder is significantly more expensive. then this replacement, when I see significant, 6 or 8,000, how do we handle that? And to the earlier comment about we don't spend it in that account, gives me a pause. Okay, you got the money, but we still need to follow the protocol on this. So that's why this particular meeting tomorrow is really important, that we follow the protocol. It's being audited. The board is assured of it. You don't have department heads or your community manager willy-nilly going out and spending lots of money just because you have it. So I want to make sure that that is documented. And then the third point is when you do have situations that are under, how do you handle that? Do I literally take, if I'm under, because the golf course, some of the golf course equipment has been under $3,000 to $5,000, do I carry it over? What is the practice? And I just need to have that documented and give us the guidelines or rails on how to do that, because right now it's pretty straightforward, but when we get into these large contingency things, I'll call them at this point, or where technology has pushed the price up rather than down, how do we handle those? And then the third part is in the spreadsheet that many of you have seen on this, the COLA factored in some time ago needs to be revisited and added to correctly, because in some instances, or across the board instances, it's not there. So something that was put in at $25,000 3 years ago, and we're going to replace it in 4 years, we never got the 2.5 or 3%, whatever it is, wiggling it up, getting that 25 now to maybe 28.75. So there's a fair amount of cleanup and addressment for that, and that will be a report to the board in September as well, and then hopefully give me some guidelines on the action items. Sure, John.
Back on the pavilion, it does say discuss and take possible action, and then you said we already approved. If I recall, in the prior meeting, you brought forward pavilion expenses, but we did not approve it because it was a $14,000 bill that didn't all add up. Nancy asked some questions around that, so it must have happened in the one meeting I wasn't at. I'm not sure we have approved.
It was actually in the May 10th meeting, and this is the meeting minutes from it that shows that it was approved for, because when you asked me that, I did stop, but wait a minute, I need to find, to make sure that's documented.
There was a, excuse me, in the May 10th meeting, where it was brought forward, we approved 9,000, whatever it was, 767, they've taken out a contingency fund, the extra cash amounts and then the commissions, but it wasn't.
Thank you. And still, good checks and balances. Thank you. Appreciate that, Jim. Staff updates. Public Works, I want to start with that. Public Works Director, we're coming down the home stretch. We hope to have on-campus final, semi-final interviews this week. And then we'll have Jim Fox involved in kind of a final between the 2 finalists. We have 4 finalists right now. 3 of them quite local. When I mean that, it's within, Sanger being the farthest, and then the 4th candidate is in the DFW market. Very strong candidates, very, very intriguing, and one of the strongest ones is a female candidate, and I find that refreshing. Received some comments from some people that were aware of that, and we're going to find the most qualified for that position. The Lifestyle Director position, i.e. communication one, we finished up our Zoom interviews this morning, and we have 2 very strong candidates to come down the final stretch, and a third one in which I'm asking Jamie to sit in with some of these Zoom interviews, because she was a Lifestyle Director in her previous life as well, and understands the walk and talk of what's involved with that. So she's been very instrumental in helping bring a different angle to the interview process as well. So that's continuing to move on. Just taking a little bit longer than I anticipated, but pleased to hear that that's moving forward. Good question in the audience?
I thought that you had hired somebody. Who was the lady that introduced herself, that she was the new person at poker night the other night?
Jolene. I thought that you had already hired somebody. There was a lady that was helping wait tables that says she's the new activity director.
No,
Where's
her official title is, she's going to be like part-time server or a banquet banquet manager or something.
Oh,
Yeah,
we
not a department.
interpreted, okay, we interpreted wrong there.
Well, I think there's someone who's a little bit of license with that one there.
No, not, sorry, I was in a live encounter the other day and I heard it explained very similarly from your staff, not that person, 'cause I've not met that person, that person would be doing various things related to activities
Yeah.
and planning, so I have a lot of questions about your position you're describing, the position of communication director we've had before, it's evolving, and I'm fine, but and then, you got a budget for a salary and communications, and now we're creating this other position, I'm not sure what communications is. I just have a lot of questions, maybe it'll get worked out in the budget, we'll work that out in the next budget.
We will, definitely will. And that person who introduced themselves, no matter what, would fall under lodge and tavern payroll as it currently stands. So if there was some expanded expectations, let me address that accordingly. Okay, then we do have one other item where I'd like some input having to do with the residential fire safety awards dinner. You see the flyer that was sent around, that is, this will be sponsored by our local fire department.
Go for it, Bart.
Go ahead.
This is a global life thing, right, with Jason,
Yes,
I think his name is. Kathy Gray and I've been texting her. We went back and forth with him several months ago, back and forth with this. He was wanting the 13 to be the sponsor. He's wanting Indian Creek to be the sponsor. He was wanting to come in and sell his product. So Kathy educated me on the fees, how educational programs you don't charge, if they're selling products that you do charge. So when we got all that straight, I also put the Indian Creek board. And we told him that the board decided that Indian Creek does not sponsor things like this, because usually that means money. All of our money is donated, so we need to strategically use that money. And the CERT team, Kathy and I were laughing, has no money because they don't have, pay membership. So they are not sponsoring. So, and we put in an email to Jason and Kathy Cockett that, sorry, but, we don't want the liability of whatever the product is. And when he starts explaining about the product, he wasn't very happy with us when we explained about, yeah, you can do your dinner, free dinner, whatever you want, but that's don't have to come from a higher power than us to waive that rental. And so we stepped out of it at that point. 13 stepped out of it at that point. So my question is, how did that get on the flyer incorporation of the ICDFD? And I just emailed the chiefs today and said, have y'all talked to this person without, the board knowing? And they go, no, they have never spoken to him. So the only one I know is me. And we, me and Kathy.
all right, well, thank you for that. That is why it's actually on the agenda here, is because this flyer wasn't produced by POA. It was something that they gave us, we want to do this. And Sam and I talked about this too, so whoa, let's take a look at this. So go ahead in the back.
Pete, go ahead. Pete.
Yeah,
Go
Pete
Mike.
Mason, Pete Mason, lot 710. I had Danny Ingles call me today about this same subject. I believe he's the head of your board, and he says vehemently that no way is the volunteer fire department associated with these people, and they really don't want to have anything to do with these folks. And so he's questioning me. I need to get back a response to him in the next 24 hours as to how you want to handle this stuff. Because supposedly there was a ad sent to the communique, which I have yet to see.
It was on the weekly update.
It was on the weekly updates, but not at the communique.
Yeah, I'd like to just kind of address it a little bit myself. When I saw the ad I got with Brian, I had some concerns about it because of the fact that, it just didn't look good. And, so I started looking at the global health and safety, people, whoever the company is. I looked at the Better Business Bureau, they had five, and they have, I think, at least four, claims against them in the Better Business Bureau. Then I saw that sponsored by Southwest B Incorporated, there is no such business on the Texas comptroller site for that business. So I don't know who it was. I talked with Brian about it because I had concerns because it was asking for, you had to register to get names. I'm sure to get names, telephone numbers, even though it says they wouldn't be selling. I expected that it would be calling people after the meeting to try to sell them something. So just to be honest with you, I was not in favor of doing this at all. And I expressed that to Brian, but we felt we should bring it before the board just to make sure that everyone agrees that we should not have this function, or we should. In my opinion, we should not. So, go ahead, Barbara.
I don't know if you're aware of the product that they're selling. It's kind of like those, medical alert things that the elderly wear around their neck. The way he explained it to me is, well, you get this thing and you give 5 people, including the volunteer fire department chief, your phone number. So if you ever need help, you call them. And we're like, wait a minute, we're volunteers, that my chief has a full-time job. So that's not possible. What do you get your 5 neighbors? So it's a networking system for helping, which is good, but I don't know that we're the community for that. And when we were talking, and Kathy stressed this, is that, yes, he can have an educational session here. Educate fire safety, what is your family's plan? Just like we used to do in school, what's your family's plan to get away out of the upstairs, who you don't call, how you make sure everybody's safe. That's good information. What we said is you cannot collect anybody's emails or phone numbers. You can pass out your business card. Jason can pass out his business card, and then Mary can contact Jason on the side, but Jason cannot solicit.
Any of the board members, have any comments on this?
The only comment I have is, do we have anything from writing in him that what he's going to do?
I don't, because it ended with us not sponsoring, and he didn't want to pay the rent. So it went, I said, well, then you don't have to go to our community manager, because CERT and Indian Creek's out of it.
So we don't have a commitment.
No, we do not, sir, not a contract or anything with that, no. It sounds like this is something that is not conducive to Lake Kiowa POA's interest at all.
I don't think we need to make a motion, but have to
No.
vote on it.
No, I put it out for input, and I can gain from the conversation pretty well, the direction in which you should go. I have no problem with that.
Could he do this if you pay the fee to do a?
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
So that would be an option for him.
Yeah. Yeah, we still need a sponsor to use it. It sounds like that would be a hollow chase, maybe. So, okay, I appreciate the input. Thank you.
Okay,
Matt, I have a question.
go ahead, Mark.
On September the 1st, one of the things in Senate Bill 1588 is that we have to bid, solicit all expenditures of 50,000 or more. So we talked about the docks and the expenses of those docks. So if we do it the next 2 weeks, we don't come under that. But after September the 1st, we're obligated to multiple bid everything over $50,000.
You will be out of compliance with that in some instances, as there are not vendors that can provide things over $50,000 in particular. And I'll go ahead and show you or explain to you in the golf department. We currently run John Deere and Toro. We currently run hydraulic equipment, replacement equipment for those two individual lines of equipment. We carry anywhere between $20,000 and $23,000 worth of parts and on-time delivery commitments for them. So if we were to go out and say, get a bid from Jacobson, that would be a hollow bid. And when you do these RFPs for it, you're gonna let know Toro and John Deere that it's going out to bid for that. In the current and really last several years marketplace, that really triggers escalation in price. It doesn't help you as it used to in years ago. Oh, it's real competitive. If you have a situation in which you know you're going to have to change over all mechanical, the training, the lubricants, the parts, that is a huge undertaking. It's not the one piece of equipment, it's $52,800. It's all the other parts with it. So it wouldn't even make sense to bid a Jacobson or roll on what you're going to have in golf course. So in this instance, I have two. Now, could I get a third one from Jacobson? Yeah. But it's borderline unethical because you're never going to throw out all that equipment because they're not going to buy back the hydraulic equipment, hydraulic oils, parts, and so forth from Toro and John Deere.
And I think I understand that. Sam and I were contracting officers for probably close to 30 years. And I think the way to get around that, if you want to buy John Deere, is to find 3 John Deere dealers and solicit.
Oh, my God.
I think there's gonna be provisions in the law to do sole sourcing for replacement of part. I mean, I think we just need to read the law and follow the law, and I know the law allows for things like this, I'm sure it does.
John,
Well, it's a good thing I'm on Corby's ad hoc committee because I have a dispute about the point. The Senate Bill 1588 refers to the obligation with the contract for services, not for equipment, not for asset replacement, but like first, I presume it means personal services and perhaps James can help us in that regard. In section 13 to 1588 on the bills, talk about section 209.52. 52 actually, the property code. At any rate, it talks about contract for services that will cost more than $50,000. So I don't necessarily think it means equipment or construction of a dock or asset replacement or lake management services or anything for construction or anything like that. I read it as a contract as it relating to personal services. So you probably ought to get James' opinion about that.
So excluding sanitation, that wouldn't come under this either. So the personal services would be a contract maybe with a golf professional or an audit firm or a legal firm that you intend to spend more than $50,000.
I think that's right. When you mentioned about garbage collection, though, that is a service.
Oh, yeah.
And we pay, the members pay directly for that, right?
Well, actually, no, it comes through, it's basically $250,000 contract that the board president and club man and the manager signs for multiple years. And the POA takes in X number of dollars and then bills a little bit less than that.
Right.
For it. So the POA picks up 2 or 3 percentile on that.
Okay, but otherwise it goes straight through.
Yeah.
James, you got something?
I was just gonna, I found the section. When they did this, they didn't do it in order, so look at the right section, you kind of have to go back and forth. But it actually says, in addition to other applicable requirements of this section, an association that proposes to contract for services that will cost more than $50,000 shall solicit bids proposals using a bid process established by the association. So I do think that it triggers off of services, and it also allows us to come up with our own bid process, so that we can come up with a process that makes sense for services that we might be bidding out for.
Okay. Anything else, Brian? You have anything more?
No, that concludes my report.
Okay. All right, go to item number 11, additional business. I put this on the Eastgate Farm operation. I know we've been having a lot of problems with people driving through the arms, and I thought that just to bring everybody up to speed on it, talk to Scott, and he and I have talked about it a little bit, and Brian. It's the fact that I think we figured out that in a month or in a week's time, we have about 1,300 people go through and go in and out over there on the East Gate. We've had, I think, about 6 or 7 where we've had the arms knocked down, and we have to. I don't know if it's a case of where the residents are just in a real big hurry or just what's going on, but we talked about possibly putting up signage. We had the most recent situation we had was a person came through with a boat, and you're not even supposed to come through the East Gate with a boat. According to our policies, you're supposed to come in through the main gate because of the quarantine situation. So I don't know if it's a case of where we've got to educate the residents on the application of using that East Gate or just what it is. I think Scott's going to work to, and this again is just for the members to know and hear if they're listening, is he's going to be doing some different things over there to try to make it a little bit better for people to come in and to go out through the East Gate. If they change up as to the, you have you're pulling a trailer, you go through one of the other gates, not through the resident gate, because that causes a problem with the arm. So anyway, it's been looked at, and I just thought I'd bring it before the board, just to let you know that things are being looked at to try to improve it. Does anybody else have any comments or questions about it? Nope, you don't live on the east side. Yeah. So anyway, we're looking into it. We've had some feedback, different ones, and so it's being looked at. Also, the driving around on Kiowa Drive, we noticed that there is a lack of striping. Excuse my misspelling. Well, they corrected it. So anyway, striping on the center line of the roads, and that's being looked at. Try to improve that a little bit and make it better for people driving at nighttime, so you can tell exactly where the center line is. So, anyway. All right. Do we have any comments from our members that are here tonight? Any comments or questions? You give your name and lot number, please.
Their budget's already on. Ken Bonzo, lot 169. Just about the beach gate and the problem, I think some of the problem, I don't know how much it is with trailers. And I think people think coming through the middle of the trailer that the arm will just stay up and it don't. So I would just suggest that maybe you allow, I mean, I have myself called security, and they see it and they raise it for me on the right side. Maybe put a toll tag reader there for residents and say for trailers. It isn't, if you're on the east side, you come through the front gate of the trailer, then across the dam and everything, it's just so much handier to come through that gate with the trailer. And we can't call security, they've been real responsive, but it'd be nice just to come up and read a toll tag, just a suggestion.
Yeah, I think that's what Scott and I were talking about today, putting a reader on that right side so you couldn't come through with a trailer.
Right.
Scott, you have anything to comment on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the problem with adding another reader for that is, that, of course, everybody's seen the contractor lane, or whatever you want to call that lane, how much larger it is, and that's designed for the larger vehicles, the RVs and trucks and trailers. Now, if we put a reader on there, well, guess what? We're gonna have to put the fifth gate on there to make the trap there to keep the other people that are trying to come in through the backside with their boats. So,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I'll just keep calling security.
yeah, like I said, the member lane, I had to attend Saturday evening, reattached the arm. We did have an incident where a gentleman did come through the gate with a truck and trailer. And the problem with it is that when you go through, and you get up to the second gate arm, well, the member lane's still up because it's still detecting that you're there. And this gentleman backed up real easy, and right in between the truck and the trailer is where the gate came down. And he proceeded to go, and I watched, the gentleman drag, he wanted to get out of the way, but he dragged. And how that gate survived is a miracle. But anyway, my advice to y'all is if you're gonna come in the back gate with your RV or your truck or trailer, use the larger lane.
Yeah.
And security's phone number is right there. And they'll let you in. The other thing I want to add too is about 2.5 weeks ago, I did go over there and do some reconfiguration on the loop detectors yourself. And if anybody wants to know what that is, you can call me at the POA office. But we had some issues where motorcycles can't get through. Well, I adjusted the sensitivity on all the gate arms. We're 1 notch away from maxing out of the sensitivity. So the problem is I haven't seen any motorcycles go through yet. So it's still waiting. So anybody's got a motorcycle, feel free to try the entrance or the exit, and so that we can find out whether or not we need to try something else other than rely on the loop detectors.
Like, anyone else have any? Go ahead.
Mark Clark, 728. Throughout Kiowa, there is road patching everywhere you look. There's flex base in it, there's decomposed granite, there's limestone chips. Is there a plan to put real asphalt in it?
Yes, there is. We are currently under a 5-year plan to continually improve the roadways along primarily Lake Kiowa as it goes through. Late September will be the next time that portion will be engaged. It's funded through the reserve fund as well as the operating budget. It's approximately about $500,000, and they're out here for 7 to 9 days. Now, it's not the total of the community by any means. If you think about it, it's kind of a 1/5. This was a program that was put together a couple of years ago and approved by boards. And so each year I bring that back up. So would it be ideal that we could do it in 3 years? Yes, I would, but that has a financial impact to the community as well. So short answer is yes, but not in its totality that a lot of people would like.
Talking the actual, whether it's been a cut
Dave?
for a repair and then base or whatever continues to be thrown into it.
Yeah, what happens is, water department, they go there and probably make a repair, and you have a cutout on the road, and they come back and they pack it down with rock. And they will coordinate with the community manager to have it, paved over. So that's what happens with those, particular patches that you're talking about.
If I'm not mistaken, in the past, while that contractor is doing that fifth of the roadway, they also go typically patch those
So
things.
patch this and that's.
Wherever the water district has made its cuts or those
That's right.
potholes.
Yeah.
So usually during that process is when it's addressed. So sometimes it may be a while if that pothole or cut is made early in the year and then the process is later. It takes a while before they actually get to do it. But that's usually what's happened in the past.
Brandon?
Randy Howell, 1014. I've got a couple of quick comments or questions that y'all sparked me earlier with. On the statements we're getting now, this is a comment my wife has made, that we pay all of our lodge tavern expenses with a credit card. And she was making a comment on how now that she's seeing that depending on how the credit card is applied or when it's applied, on the, call it the gratuity or tip fees, is showing up on our POA bill, not on our credit card bill.
Yes.
So there's some glitch going on there that needs to be looked at.
That's the first that it's been brought to my attention. I will talk with my North Star contacts and see what's going on.
Yeah, I know that in the past, the server would bring you your check and you would look at it. And then you would give them the credit card, they would take it back and run the credit card,
Right.
bring you back a new receipt. We didn't have that problem. And now, well, my wife, it seems to think, is that you need to give them the credit card at the very beginning, not at the end. You don't want that not to happen.
Right.
And
Okay.
so that's something you might want to look into.
I will definitely get with my lodge manager and find the house manager, and then I will talk with my North Star person, because if you're doing a charge against your credit card, the gratuity should not be getting
Right.
added to your
So,
property.
yeah, for her to keep up with our household budget, that's kind of confusing, it's not where she wants to keep it.
Yeah, totally.
And then the other one, on the lodge and tavern, Jim, when you were giving a report earlier on our expenses and our revenues, on the expenses, is there a way, or is there any benefit for us to have a breakdown on the revenue, how much that's coming in from takeout versus dine-in, or how much is from drinks, not food? To see how maybe we could better produce income for the lodge and make more master people.
Well, that would be a technical issue, I guess, to try to figure out how to figure out that, you know, through the,
If that's
through
something
that.
I don't know.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's possible.
Strictly just a thought or a question.
Right, that would be a question for us to one, talk with our North Star person, and also to get with Vincent and Penny and Deborah and see
And maybe
what
to
kind of
do the escrow,
reports
I don't know.
are available through the North Star, if they can look at it that way.
We do have a different, we do have a breakdown for liquor, beer, and wine versus other food. So that's separate. But to your point on takeout, we'll ask that.
And I mean, it's not something that I'm needing, I'm just wondering if that's something that might be beneficial for the board or lodge and tavern to help promote better business or run a more tighter ship, I don't know. So I'll reach out, that's the question. That's it, thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Yes, what?
Wayne, I'm a new resident, lot 301. And I came from a similar place in California, so I enjoyed this very much. And one question I had was, if the rezoning results, and do the residents get your information also? And how is it going to be sent? I think we'd probably like to know too, how it's going.
I thought when we voted earlier, we said it would be for public information. I mean, that's what this board is for, public information, and we can make sure that it goes out on a weekly update.
Oh, it was just a question.
Yeah.
Wasn't it?
Yeah,
Maybe
no, it's
I
a good
missed
question.
it.
No,
Okay.
earlier.
Okay, and another question I have is, we were under the understanding, my sister and I moved in together, and that when we heard about this meeting, we read about it, it said that we could offer questions, and my sister sent one in, and on there, we understood it to say that all questions would be answered. And at this, our question is at this meeting or at another time, or I don't know how it's that answered. Thank you.
You say, excuse me, you sent a question in and it was not answered?
Well, it wasn't answered at this meeting.
It's about, it's this lot 301.
Yes.
We have it there.
I have it
I won't be
here.
getting to it as soon as I finish with everybody here. Yeah, hold on. Just wait a few minutes.
That's fine, that happens more often than not.
Excuse me.
Clark?
I'm on the front entrance committee, and one of the discussions is, and one of the results of us knowing the fors and the against, is part of that campaign, and some of the people on our committee has discussed one of the thermometers out front here at the lodge that shows you how many we need to go, how many votes at the end. And so like the United Way does, as we count those votes, that thermometer goes up and up and up, and it tells you what's going on.
That's a good idea.
That was one of the ideas. That's one of the reasons we need to know, and I want to emphasize again, that that's an important piece that also emphasizes how much effort we need to put into getting further votes out.
Okay, do I have any other questions from the residents that are here? Okay, now we'll get into the questions that were sent out online. Okay? I have, hey, we only have 3, so we won't be here very long. This came from Vincent Devanio, lot 1311. As a new member since October, we have had much needed work done on our home. Unfortunately, we have been stung and lost money on either dishonest or unprofessional contractors. One was just a crook, the other incompetent and lied about having insurance, so when he messed up, I was left with another loss. Why can't we require a license to do work in Lake Kiowa, require insurance and an annual fee? We do everything to protect our security, but let unscrupulous contractors play on newbies like me. As a retired insurance executive, I'd be happy to chair such an approval and acceptance committee. Thank you for hearing me out. Regards, Vincent. I'm gonna let Brian respond to that.
This is in fact very unfortunate and not terribly uncommon either throughout the United States. It's not unique to Lake Kiowa, and I certainly feel for members that go through this, because there's some organizations or companies out there that, you know, that's how they're set up to be, candidly. But for the POA to get into the business of filtering who are bonded, who are not insured, is not the responsibility of the POA. It's not a business that the POA should take under. I have seen in some communities that are out of development, because if you're in development, there's another whole umbrella that covers that. But after you're out of development, that you might have what's considered best practice and have a list of preferred vendors that go through, and they might cost more, cost less, or be competitive. The cost, once again, which have nothing to do with the POA, but having to do with they are a preferred vendor and that they are been tested, reaffirmed, things like that. And the online thing is kind of the Angie's List. You can go to that, but that's not what you want to do. You want something more that has a lineage, that they've been doing this since 2015, 16, 17, and these are the people with testimonials and things like that. But that would be the extent of that. And I'm sorry to say, you know, this is a buyer beware of a private piece of property that the POA does not have ownership with, and it's up to the individual.
Anybody else like to add any comments? Yep.
Sam? Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Let me get it. Sitting on the ACC committee till the end of the month. This actually came up today and not related to this question, because another member had a similar issue in the ACC committee. Was thinking about it and had a lot of concerns, just like Brian brought forth, but was something they still would like to explore different avenues that we can do. I will say that under licensing, we do require contractors to have licenses according to the state, but there's only a couple of licenses that are required by the state, and it's typically things like electrical and plumbing, and maybe EDAC, that kind of thing. So there's, I'm not an expert on all those areas, but they are required to if it's required by the state. So we can look at on the architectural control committee going forward, may look at some things, but we'll probably have to get legal review and full board involvement too.
Ray, did you have a comment?
Well, Jim has pretty much said what I was going to say. There is, through the state requirements, there's only about 4, all in mechanical and security companies, studio-owned companies. Anybody that's construction, roofing, concrete work, any other type of construction outside that shop, there's no state license for it. Never has been in state Texas. It's been probably 10, 12 years ago, maybe longer.
that we did have the state come in and enact a licensed register, get the registered with the state as a contractor. You know, that fell apart after about 5 years of the sunset law. It dropped out. So there's nothing there. You flip hamburgers one day, it's gonna be a building the next.
Yeah, I kind of, my thinking on it is, what would be the liability that the POA would encounter if you were to be, you know, say this person's good, this person is not, this type thing. So I would have concerns about even thinking about something like that. So anyway, next question. Kathy Lenny, lot number 301. There are some great buildings adjacent to the fence surrounding Lake Kiowa, very close to Cocoa Drive, that look like apartments. Are these associated in any way with Lake Kiowa? I asked because a pit bull came out of one of those apartments into Lake Kiowa property, and the owner came through the fence to get him before he could attack my sister and her dog, who were walking through the memorial shed close by the fence. The man looked disheveled and unkempt. Are there any plans to reinforce this area of the fence surrounding Lake Kiowa? I'll let Brian respond.
There's absolutely no relationship between those commercial buildings in Lake Kiowa. They are a proximity to the community for it, and you know, we will certainly have security take a look at, you know, situations with a pit bull or something that gets on property and give them a heads up on it. But the adjacent buildings on the other side of the community are the neighbors of Lake Kiowa. Yeah, Randy?
I'm pretty positive that is part of Lake Kiowa. That whole lot, that's lot 1 of Lake Kiowa. Store, the apartments, all that is one of the commercial properties of Lake Kiowa.
And are the dues being members as well?
One lot dues paid.
For all of that? Okay, well, thank you.
Yeah.
I did not know that. All right.
With the owner?
Yep.
That's a lot.
That's Bill. Okay.
Yeah.
That's Bill Allen. All right.
Yeah, they have to pay dues. Christy told me they pay dues because they're lot 1 for that Bolero station and all of that.
Real estate office.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Sam, or excuse me, Scott.
It's still me, 301, anyway. And I was noticing, and I've heard other people comment also about the perimeter and how little security there is here when we're a secure community. It's kind of hard for me to understand that. Like I said, I came from a similar situation in another state on the coast, and we had a brick building around ours, and yet we felt very secure. I mean, not building, but I mean a wall, brick wall. And here you don't, and it's a huge place and hard for security to watch. What is our plan to improve that situation? Do we have one? And can we, does anybody else care besides me? Especially around that lot number 1. Yeah, but everywhere. I've seen people go through. Oh, they come through in droves. Yeah, we all know that. I mean,
Well, let me ask you this, do you call security when these situations take place, or try to get security involved? And that's why yeah, we have security that you can call, and they will probably more likely respond if a situation comes up like that. I don't know of any plans to put up a brick wall all around our property, though. I wouldn't be able to afford the dues that we would be paying to put it up. And I don't think a lot of the members would be for that. That's my personal opinion. I don't know, anybody else have anything on it?
I'll add, last month we talked about this, and I mean, if you've seen a lot of people coming through that area, I don't know about that, but, and I believe that could be a problem. But as far as security events, we really haven't had it. We had 2 weeks in May where there were some challenges of people coming in, and there was some vandalism and theft in cars. But other than that, and then every summer because the kids are out of school. But really, the security issues really haven't been alarming, you know, that what I've heard in the reports.
We have dogs. I have a little Shih Tzu, and where I used to live, he was attacked 4 times by a pit bull. So when I say there's a pit bull, I don't want to go through that again. He almost died, and it was very traumatic. And I didn't have the nerve to kill the dog, which I had the right to because he's come on my property. So I don't want to face that again. So if somebody can just find out who that pit bull is, and I'll give him. In September.
Now, let me go to the next question. David Slack, lot 692. When is the POA board going to enforce the lake rules? Why has there been no lake patrol for a long time? Last time I saw one was shortly after the 4th of July.
Sam, that's my question, and I should have been a little more specific in way I put it.
Would you give it a name and lot on
Yeah,
it?
Jake, you just said David Slack, lot 692. And
we have lake rules and they're not enforced, that there are no rules at all. And the ones I'm seeing, I think people haven't read the rules. For one, they haven't taken a test, they're going the wrong way, you know, and when we're supposed to go counterclockwise. And on a small lake, that's very dangerous. And again, I'm not out there 24/7 watching for lake control, but I have not seen this since the 4th of July weekend.
You're absolutely right in terms of if you're not going to be able to monitor that. For one reason or the other, the association got rid of the vehicle to monitor the lake access about 18 months ago. It was a jet ski to be able to monitor it more routinely. We've also had remarkably staff shortages to use the existing boat, which is really a day boat that, you know, it's not going to chase people down. It certainly can put on a siren and pull people over with it, but you don't have people that are comfortable navigating our small lake. They're not going to be able to do that. So this is a high priority for our new chief of security. We're going to need to make sure that they have the equipment to do that, to enforce it. You know, visibility is a big part of rule enforcement, be it speeding on the roads, be it going the wrong way on the lake, and nipping that in the bud. Yes, I've certainly seen it firsthand, standing out in front of the lodge where someone's going up this side of the lake. So wait a minute, they just saw a bunch of skiers go down the other way. So your point is well taken, and it's been ongoing, and it probably was pretty bad this summer. There's no 2 ways to address that.
And we all know about the surfing situation. I mean, and if they're saying they're not surfing anything behind a large wave behind a boat, whatever you want to call it, that's surfing. And the large wave on a small lake are very destructive. That's why I think the rule is in effect, and why it's not enforced, I don't understand.
Let me just add to what Ron said. As you probably know, and you read in the paper, you hear in the news, people don't want to work anymore. Okay, we have high unemployment. Security, I was informed they hired 3 officers the first week of new chief. The 3 officers that were hired decided they didn't want to stay here, so they're gone. So they're short of security people. That's one of the reasons that you're not seeing security around. Hiring people that want to do the job. They make better pay at other places. They don't want to work out here. So it's a problem with the hiring the personnel that we need to actually do the job that we have out here. But as far as the enforcement, we're trying to have security to enforce, we're behind security enforcing the rules that we have here at the association. Just be patient with us for a while and let us get the staffing that we need to be able to do it. Okay? Anybody?
Yeah.
Yes.
Cecil Heath, Lot 297. I am the president of the Anglers Club and also a member of the Lake Committee. As part of both of those organizations, I've committed to go back to the security arm of here at Lake Kiowa, and now headed by Melanie Cade. I will ask for some of her time within the next couple of weeks. I was going to sit down with the prior head of security until the resignation. What I will do is address a number of major topics from both organizations, and that is one of them. There are several. I'll put an agenda together to make sure that they're addressed, and an ask from, I would call it, the residents would be a plan in place, tell us, for these key topics or issues that we have, give back to us a plan so that we can communicate that to the residents. There's a plan in place. It might take 6 months, before all of it is addressed fully, but at least then we can communicate back to people, here's what's going on, or here's what's going on, and here's what we're gonna do about it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Steve.
Yeah.
Any other questions, or comments? Okay. At this time, I'd like to have a motion to adjourn from open session for us to go into executive session. Have a motion, second. Randy, second. All in favor? All right. This time we will go into executive